You know the feeling. You wake up to that blaring alarm, you drag yourself through a gray, crowded commute, then you just sit there, under artificial lights, watching the clock tick down, literally waiting for permission to leave. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving deep into some highly sensitive source documents that expose a massive, hidden machinery operating right beneath our noses. You have to ask yourself, is your daily grind just some unavoidable accident of modern economics, or is it a meticulously engineered trap that's been running for over a century?
So why exactly does the 9-to-5 feel like a prison? Well, the sources we're unpacking today suggest a pretty chilling answer. It's not a personal failure on your part. You aren't lazy and you aren't lacking drive. Your exhaustion, it's actually the precise intended result of deliberate, lifelong conditioning. From the literal moment you could walk, you've been trained to accept a life of servitude to arbitrary schedules and massive corporate structures.
To understand this, we have to go back. Imagine being a child in 19th century Prussia. You're separated from your parents, placed in a rigid, sterile room. You're told exactly when to sit, when to stand, when to speak. And here's the kicker. The philosophy behind this wasn't about education at all. It was explicitly aimed at, and I quote, destroying free will. The whole objective was to make sure that for the rest of your life, you'd be fundamentally incapable of acting any differently than how your masters dictated.
Part 1. The illusion of education. You see, the system was sold to us as a ladder. It was supposed to lift you up, turn you into an independent thinker or a groundbreaking scientist, right? But the data we're looking at reveals a completely different blueprint. School simply isn't designed for learning. It's a psychological trap engineered from the ground up for mass compliance. The real curriculum here is obedience to authority. It's preparing you to become a willing, compliant cog in a machine you will never, ever own.
Part 2. Colonizing the human mind.
Let's look at the mid-1800s. The Prussian Empire had just conquered Poland, and they faced a massive problem. They had a proud, resistant population who absolutely refused to be ruled. So the Prussian leadership realized a dark truth. They knew they couldn't break the adults, but the children, well, the children were entirely moldable. By forcing them into mandatory 8-year schooling, they unlocked the absolute perfect mechanism for psychological subjugation. The ultimate goal here was never literacy, it was total, unquestioning submission to state power. It was literally a geopolitical strategy designed to decimate an entire culture in just one generation, and it was an incredibly effective weapon for capturing the human mind. In fact, it was so ruthlessly effective that by 1843, an American education advocate named Horace Mann saw this and imported the whole system directly to the United States.
Part 3. The Rockefeller Apex Predator.
Now, the sources we're reviewing define two very stark financial realities. First, you have what they call mediocre stand. This is the classic working-class trap where your income is strictly capped by your physical labor and your time. You're just trading hours for a fixed paycheck. Second, there's extreme stand. This is the playground of the elite, and it's built entirely on scaling assets, not trading time. This massive wealth divide is exactly what set the stage for a sweeping industrial intervention.
Flash forward to the early 1900s. John D. Rockefeller had a problem. He owned these immense, sprawling empires of oil, mines, and steel, but he lacked the massive, obedient workforce required to actually run them. According to the texts, his vision was crystal clear. He didn't want a nation of thinkers. He wanted a nation of workers. He didn't need entrepreneurs, and he certainly didn't need poets.
So what did he do? Rockefeller weaponized his massive wealth. He created the General Education Board. Now, to the public eye, this was dressed up as a noble charity, but the source material describes it as a calculated, diabolical tool to force a standardized curriculum across the entire country. Rockefeller needed cogs. He needed people who would show up to a 9-to-5, wait for instructions, and just follow them without a second thought. Basically, he used his billions to standardize the human mind.
Part 4. Conditioning the modern cog.
Think about the life of a modern student for a second. 6 to 7 hours trapped in a classroom. Add in mandatory homework, forced extracurriculars, suddenly you're looking at an 8 to 9 hour day. The sources point out a dark, really inescapable parallel here. This isn't education, it's factory shift conditioning. It's the exact duration of a grueling corporate workday completely normalized before a child even reaches puberty.
And within those highly controlled hours, natural human curiosity is systematically crushed. You're taught that there is only one correct answer and only one acceptable way to arrive at it. Creative thought? Outlawed. Independent problem solving, erased. Uniformity is strictly enforced, ensuring that every single mind fits perfectly into the industrial machinery that's just waiting for them the second they graduate.
But what happens when human nature actually fights back? What happens when a child's mind rejects that rigid factory setting? Well, that brings us to a massive $25 billion enforcement mechanism.
According to the sources, non-compliance is immediately pathologized. If a child is too loud, too active, or naturally resists rigid discipline, they are branded with a label. The text aggressively claims these children are then medicated with what some literally describe as diet meth, all just to force them to sit still. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry designed to convince energetic natural minds that they are fundamentally sick solely because they refuse to conform.
Part 5. The Economic Collapse Trap. The authors of these documents argue that the elite power structures actually need you to be exhausted. They need you to be unhappy. The entire system relies on keeping a massive, dissatisfied population trapped in the working class to perform the grunt labor. Someone has to flip the burgers, pave the roads, and staff the cubicles to sustain their status quo. And they keep you there while looming threats like massive debt manipulation and hyperinflation quietly wipe out whatever tiny bit of savings you actually manage to scrape together.
Part 6. Escaping the system.
So how do you get out? The materials propose a very specific escape vehicle called the Faceless Income Fast Start Method. The logic breaks down into 3 steps. First, you absolutely must stop being a laborer who trades time for money. Second, you build automated digital assets, specifically faceless YouTube channels. And third, you model the elite. You outsource the actual grunt work to remote contractors so you reap the profits without being chained to the physical labor.
The source issues a really stark financial ultimatum here. The old 9 to 5, it's going extinct. The middle class is currently being buried by inflation. True freedom means aggressively moving your income over to extreme stand. You must own digital assets that rise in value independently of the hours you work, and you need to do it before the traditional dollar completely collapses. You have to transition from being a worker to being an owner, where you're going to watch your life's work simply evaporate.
We've unpacked the dark history, we've exposed the hidden corporate structures, and we've laid out the digital escape route. Now, the source leaves us with one final chilling ultimatum. If you fight to defend your limitations, the system is going to gladly let you keep them. So, can you reject a century of Prussian conditioning? Can you reclaim your ability to think for yourself? The machinery is running. The only question left is, will you remain a cog, or will you stay dangerous and question everything? Thanks for joining us for this explainer.